Okay, and now you guys expect me to talk. It is kind of momentous to be up here. The first time, last time, and only time that I did the keynote for the Autism Society was when I was first being elected to the board. And at that time, I think that my first statement to the group was, my friends had told me that, because I was very nervous, that what I should do is to imagine all of you in your underwear or naked, and that it would help me to be able to present to you. However, I turned it around to visualize or dream at night that I was standing on stage and all of my clothes dropped off. So 10 years later, I won't say how many pounds later, and many miles later, let's hope to God that doesn't happen. So none of us do this alone, and I look around and there are so many of my colleagues who I have learned lessons from, and so many of your children who have taught me lessons. And so what I want to talk today about is a little bit about what some of those lessons are, what I have learned in my journey on the path of autism, which has been a delightful journey. And I have been so honored to serve as the board chair. By the way, I'm not leaving the board, just the chair position. And we'll see who we can come up with for the next chair, Jim Ball. I think one of the things that really drives me, and you have to understand a little bit about my passion about this, is that I am very concerned about, Ruth, and I do this in your honor, I am very concerned about the adult outcomes that we have. And I see individuals who are graduating from high school into the abyss of adult services. And we have a very high unemployment rate. We have many individuals who are living on the spectrum who are living in poverty. Those who, with advanced degrees who can't get jobs. Who are underpaid, if they're paid at all, and don't have the benefits that many of us do. And so while this is a lesson, this is also a challenge to all of you. I think too often we focus on processes. Should we do ABA? Should we do Division Teach? Should we do PECS? Should we do RTI? Unless you can be clear about the outcome that you are gearing towards, you should not be having the discussion about processes. And so families, I don't know how old your children are, if they're 5 or 6 or 2 or 15 or 20, but I want you to visualize them as being 35. And I want you to visualize what that life will be there. And I want you to start making a plan today that will take that child on a path, on a journey that will lead them to successful employment outcomes, that will lead them to successful post-secondary option outcomes, that will give them a life where they are living in the community and they have the options of where they live, that they have the options about where they recreate, because we too often define people simply by where they work or where they live. But what gives our lives meaning are the friendships and the relationships we have, and we need to start thinking about that. So I would invite you, as you go on this journey, to think about outcomes first instead of processes. Too often, and one of the things that I love to do is when I go and do consultations is that I love to go and see IEP goals. These are some of my favorites. Jimmy will successfully cross the street in 4 out of 5 attempts. Because you can meet criteria and die on this one, which is really special. Nancy will speak in correct sentences during 30 minutes of speech twice weekly. The rest of the time she will be mute. Okay? And parents, if I were a parent of a child with autism and my child had speech for 30 minutes twice a week, I would be furious. If my child had speech for 30 minutes 3 times a week, I would be livid. If my child had speech for 30 minutes 5 times a week, I would be angry beyond belief. Because speech, communication is not about talking in a speech therapy room. It's about engaging in all environments. Communication is the responsibility of all of us. So the question you should be asking is not how many minutes of speech is my child getting, but how are we embedding communication across the entire day? How are we making sure that individuals have the opportunity to communicate? How are we sabotaging things so that we're not anticipating what they need and what they want, and so not helping them to be able to communicate? The next one I have a difficult time with, and I think that's because I will never be able to demonstrate compliance throughout any entire day. But we don't want our folks to be compliant all the time. We want them to follow directions. But compliance all the time means that when somebody asks them to do something that is not in their best interest, when somebody asks them to do something that will socially or sexually compromise them, that they will do that. So you want our folks to make good judgments about things. Okay, this was really cute. Beverly will walk upstairs by alternating feet twice a day. This was a new teacher, and she pulls me over to the side, and she says, she doesn't have a goal to come down, but I bring her down anyway. Otherwise, this would be the stairway to heaven goal. Okay. So the next one, I want to know if this is a job in Texas. Jill will stand on one foot for 30 minutes daily. Okay? And just so you know a few things about me, I'm old. I'm a highly assisted blonde. Okay? And so sometimes I know I do ask dumb questions that are highly assisted. And so I asked them, why? And they said to me, because last year she could do 25 minutes. This is like the developmental curriculum gone awry. The next one is a parent was telling me that somebody had written a goal for her child that said, Scott will never again manipulate another adult. Okay? I'd like to see the data sheet on that. Okay? So when we develop programs, outcomes must be socially significant. They must contribute to people's lives. You must have that vision of 35 in your mind. And think about how does that contribute to their life. Yesterday we had Kareem and Sharon from the federal government talking to us about the initiatives at the federal level. And I am really pleased to hear that the federal government is starting to realize that individuals are more than just their academic self, but there's a whole social component to our folks. And we know that oftentimes for many of our folks, the reasons that they have difficult in jobs is because of those social skills. By the way, do you all know that children with autism are not the only ones with poor social skills in schools? Okay, good. Just checking to make sure you're in reality.